In front of me, we have 4 Hazy Supermarket IPAs. Let's see what happens. All right, so to make things interesting, we are gonna black out what beers we're tasting today so you and I can both enjoy the reveal at the same time. If you guys have not already seen the Supermarket IPA tasting, you should check it out. It's linked down below. It's a prequel to what we're about to do today. So to make things significantly more straightforward than last time, we have these lovely can koozies. The guys have obscured the cans for me. I can't see what they are. Totally taped off here at the top and obscured by the koozie that we have here. Before I start, guys, a lot of trolls in the comments saying things like, "You picked this one for that reason." I have to tell you that I could not possibly care less who I pick. I just don't care. If it's Goose Island, if it's Anheuser-Busch, if it's Treehouse, if it's Pilsner Urquell, if it's Michael's Homebrew, all that said, I don't care who I pick. There's no reason for me to doctor this. I have no vested interest in any of these beers, any of these breweries, nor do I care what the outcome is. I'm gonna pick from my right to left today, your left to right. We're gonna actually letter them, A, B, C, D, and see if that works out. Thank you, random guy who left that suggestion in the comments. Diving into sample letter A. Is that how you say that? Sample letter A? Sample number A? That just sounds too fast. All right, so we got, I'm doing a hazy IPA tasting. I can't comment on the haziness. All right. Maybe should I have like a little glass to it? One final thing I want to mention before I dive in is there's the question that came up during the last video. Is beer better out of a can or out of a glass? That's another future video, so make sure you get subscribed. I have a ton of thoughts on that subject, but one thing is for sure. When regular beer, or especially hoppy beer, gets subjected to direct sunlight, it's really, really bad for it. So for the purposes of this tasting, I'm gonna smell and taste it out of the can, and then I'm gonna pour it into the glass to comment on its appearance. Sample number 1. Ooh, it's got that like cardboardy aroma. Got that like old school caramel malt, kind of sweet. More on the pine forward hop aroma. Flavor's good though. One thing I'll note right off the jump, in comparison to the ordinary supermarket or standard supermarket West Coast style IPA, this one is significantly softer. Way less hop punch, way less bitterness. Arguably less flavor. I'm getting a little bit of like tropical fruit, a little bit of citrus happening in this first sample. Nothing's overwhelming, nothing super punchy. And frankly, in comparison, in contrasting with the regular supermarket IPA, I can see why Hazy IPA is so popular. Let's see how this looks in the glass. Okay. I mean, on the pour, it's a little more translucent than that opaque that we're so familiar with here at Treehouse. The color is really nice. Vibrant yellow. Wow. Yeah. I mean, of course, pouring it into the glass opens up that aroma a little bit. And before it gets light struck, I'll comment just a little bit further. That's nice. Got a little bit of a earthy vegetal character on the back end, but clean, fluffy, fruity. Not bad. That's sample A. It's so weird. It's going to take me a minute to get used to that. Sample B for Bob. Sample B. Whoa. Tropicana. Punchy. Pineapple. Nice. Very aromatic. Nice pineapple note. Wow. Solid. Very different on the flavor. That actually comes across as a little bit more West Coasty. A lot of caramel malt. A lot of that like oxidative, piney, resiny character. That's kind of surprising based on the initial blast of aroma. That initial blast of aroma was like Dole pineapple juice. And it's kind of gotten a little bit worse from there. Aroma's still nice in the can. Again, the flavor falls very, very short. So let's see how sample number B looks. Oh, that's not not very hazy. It's not very hazy. Looks like it has a little bit of oxidative character, potentially. Definitely more orange in color, and definitely a little more clear than that first sample, more translucency, whereas sample number 1 is allowing less light to pass through. So on the haze scale, that's probably a 4. Moving on to sample C. Ooh, this one looks like it might be a little bit hazier. Another pineapple bomb. Yeah, dull pineapple juice, citrus. Not as much of that malty note in the background. Whoa. Whoa. Very fruity, tropical hop oil, but punchier. This is like a hybrid of those original Supermarket IPAs with a lot of that fruitiness that you're so familiar with modern IPA. That's punchy, much more hop forward than the first two. Hop punch on the front, hop punch on the back end. If I was blindfolded completely and I couldn't see inside this can and I didn't know that I was tasting hazy style IPA, I would say that this is more of a classic IPA brewed with more modern and fruity hops. Tastes great though. All right, so let's see how sample C looks in the glass. Wow, I thought that was going to look a little more hazy than it does. I think Supermarket Haze is different than Fresh at the Brewery Haze. It's always a little more translucent. It's always been a little more beaten up by travel. It's not to say it's not great. It just has a different appearance than the one that I'm familiar with. Sample C has similar haze to Sample A, with Sample B having the least haze so far. Diving into the final sample, Sample D. It's oxidative on the nose. It's got that wet dog smell. Yeah, I mean, I'm so sensitive to this, guys. I smell and drink fresh beer all day, every day. So when I have the slightest hint of oxidation, it just overwhelms my palate. It's got that like hop resin, older hop resin, kind of stale orange, a little bit of resiny pine. Yeah, same thing on the sample. Has a lot of similarities to Sample B. I think this one's not in the best condition, and I kind of have a rant about that. You guys had suggested that we search for the right date code, and I kind of have a rant about that, so stay tuned for that. Let's see how Sample D looks in the glass. Looks pretty good. Dark yellow, mild orange. Flavor doesn't necessarily match. But yeah, I mean, appearance-wise and haze-wise, it's on par with Sample C and Sample A. Go through one more time really quick in both the glass and the can. As we mentioned, the glass at this point is probably not the best indicator because they have been exposed to sunlight, but I will use them as part of my consideration. And then I'll go back through the cans and I will rank them 1 through D. Yeah, I gotta smell them and taste them in the can at this point. Sample A is definitely the roundest and most soft of the group. It's also the most mellow potentially, so even though it is soft, you know, for the type of beer that we make at Treehouse, we try to make soft beer that's also incredibly flavorful. Sometimes doing both of those things can be really difficult, but Sample A certainly succeeds at being soft. I think it could be more flavorful. Diving back into Sample B. Yeah, I'm not digging that. It's got that. It just tastes old. It tastes unfresh to me. It doesn't taste great. Little bit of rindy citrus, a little bit of stale pine character, but not very bright, not very punchy on either the aroma or the taste. I did get some nice pineapple juice from that aroma on the first go round. Sometimes pineapple can be a flavor that's associated with oxidation in certain capacities, and I just didn't love the flavor profile of Sample B. Moving on to Sample C. Bright, leafy. Citrusy, resiny, tropical hop oil, fresh, bright, really, really, really nice. Crisp body. Doesn't have the fluffiness that I typically associate with hazy style IPA, but the flavor is pretty much on point. And finally, sample D. This is fun. I mean, you guys on the channel have watched me taste lager and pilsner and stout and all kinds of different things. Your homebrew. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. This is my happy place. This is the type of brewing that I've been doing since I started, and I have helped contribute to, hopefully. And I'm just having a lot of fun tasting these beers. See, this is a beer that I don't think is in great condition. It has attributes that are good, kind of like that rotten orange character. That sounds like a bad descriptor. Maybe overripe orange is a better way of putting it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just doesn't taste bright and fresh. I think I have a really good idea of the way that I'm going to rank these beers. Oh, here's some thoughts. I'm going to rank them A, B, C, D as like what I think of as a hazy style IPA. I think that the one that is most appropriate to style is sample A. Very fruity, very bright, very soft, but way too subtle. And I think if sample A was able to punch up the flavor profile a little bit more, it would be more in line with what I enjoy as a drinker. So that said, my favorite beer of the sampling was sample C. C was my number one. It was the brightest, it was the most fresh, it had the most tropical characteristics, it had the most backbone, and I just really, really liked the way that it presented in the sampling. Sample A was my second favorite. Bright, fluffy, it just wasn't punchy enough, didn't have enough flavor. But in terms of hazy style IPA, the type of IPA that we've been brewing for almost 15 years now, this one kind of represented the style maybe the best in terms of construct. It just didn't get there on the flavor profile. Sample D is my number 3, and you know that's being slightly generous. I didn't love either B or D, but in going back for that final sampling, I did find it to be a little bit punchier and maybe a hair fresher. And then finally, sample B was my least favorite of the sampling. It just didn't present well in this tasting, and I did not see any reason to rank it other than last. One final point that I do want to make before the reveal, guys, is that I try to be as objective as possible. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I don't care who wins, and I have no vested interest in who does, so I try to be as objective as possible. That said, I'm not here to rip on other breweries, and I probably never will. You probably can't go wrong if you pick up a 4-pack, 6-pack, 12-pack of any of these beers in any of the supermarkets near you. Michael, what are we drinking? Oh, I have the cans. Fun. All right. Look at me. How do I... Oh, yeah.
So that's your number 2.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is New Belgium, right? Juicy Haze. Voodoo Ranger. Yeah, I mean, spot on to style. 2 Mile. Pump it up, boys and girls. Sample B. So you guys leave comments, and Michael's got me doing stuff that I'm not used to. Stupor Hazy IPA by 6 Point. Okay. Sierra. You guys, 2 for 2 and when you've been in the sampling, I think. This was good, man. Punchy. More West Coast. You know, it tasted like a Sierra beer that has a little bit of haze to it. And the final sample in the Supermarket Hazy IPA. One more thing I want to mention in response to the comments is that, you know, there's some questions about what a Supermarket IPA is. And certainly in 2024, you can probably get your local brewery in a supermarket. Maybe the better descriptor for this is mass market. The idea is you can walk into any supermarket and you're likely to find any of these beers. That's kind of our idea of a Supermarket IPA. Hazy Blues, Juicy IPA. Is this Oscar Blues? Oscar Blues. All right, so a couple things before we wrap, guys. A lot of people mentioned date codes in the comments last time. kind of have a strong opinion about that. As an ordinary general consumer going into a supermarket, if I buy a tub of yogurt, the expectation is that I'm getting the best yogurt that I can buy when I'm in the supermarket. And I think that we should hold breweries to the same standard, that the expectation is when you pull something off the shelf, that it tastes the way that they intended. So when we have these samplings of IPAs that are readily accessible, we pull them off the shelf like any consumer would, and we judge them based on that principle. While these IPAs are very good and accessible, they do lack the brightness, punch, and hop saturation of some of our more local counterparts. So there's a place in this world for both approaches, but in terms of finding an IPA that's accessible anywhere, that reaches the levels of some of your favorite local hazy IPA producers, I think we have a very, very long way to go. So there's value to both approaches. Get subscribed, guys. Is beer better out of a can or a glass is upcoming. I want to thank you guys for watching. Go nuts in the comments. See you next time.